Are they? Here, you can get it from Ocean.
I know, man, that's the worst.
The meeting will now come to order. Ms. Griffith, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Werner?
Here.
Mr. Damp?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Armenter?
Here.
Mr. Blossman?
Here.
Mr. Brazel?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Shadowland? Ms. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Mallett?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Perry? Mr. Starnes?
Here.
Mr. Woods?
Here.
Mr. Yarborough?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. This morning, I am very pleased to introduce our two students who also happen to be student athletes who are joining us for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Providing the invocation today is Blake Ferguson, who played with distinction on the national championship LSU Tiger football team, number 48 and deep snapper. Blake recently graduated with his MBA in December and has just returned from workouts prior to the NFL draft. Blake will be followed by Haley Knight, an LSU swimmer who comes to LSU from the state of Massachusetts. She's a kinesiology major and specializes in freestyle, and she will lead the pledge. So Blake, we will turn it over to you.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for all of the blessings you bestowed upon our beautiful university. We're so grateful to call this university home and to call ourselves Tigers. We ask that you continue to bless us as we work to glorify you in all that we do. We ask you to guide the leadership of this university as they make decisions that will affect both the immediate and long-term future of the university. Lord, provide them clarity in the moments of conflict to work through them quickly and to keep the benefit of the university in mind. Thank you for all you've given us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, as Ms. Warner so beautifully said, my name is Blake Ferguson, and I had the pleasure of being on the football team here at LSU for the last 5 years. There were quite a few ups and downs, but I would say that you can't write it any better than the way that I was able to finish my career here. And I'm incredibly grateful to have been able to go to a university that has a support system like we have here. The board, you guys have been incredibly supportive of us, and we're forever grateful for that. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys for what you do, and thank you for allowing us to be here.
Morning. I am Haley Knight. I have swam here for 4 years now on the swim team. From Boston, Massachusetts, so it's very different than Baton Rouge, but I love it down here. Obviously, I started my master's. I'm staying for another 2 years, so swimming on the swim team here was just a great part of my life, and I'll never forget it, and I just want to thank you guys for everything you've done for us.
I want to thank you both for taking the time to join us today. We remember all the time that our job here is about students and about the people who are here getting their degrees, studying, but you as athletes certainly represent us on not just the SEC stage, but on the national stage. And so congratulations for all your success, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Mr. Ferguson will be watching closely at the end of April, and we wish you all the best. And Haley, we're so glad you're going to stay and continue your studies with us, and we look forward to more success for you as well. So thank you both, and thanks for taking the time. We have no one registered for public comment today. As was announced last week, the board has engaged AGB, Association of Governing Boards, to conduct a study of the leadership structure of the Louisiana State University system and of the flagship campus. We are pleased to welcome the AGB facilitators who will be conducting the study, which they've already begun here with us in the last few days. I have invited them to provide an overview of their process. And I would like to welcome now Richard Novak, Senior Consultant and Senior Fellow, Lynn Somerville, Assistant Director of AGB Consulting, and George Pernstenert, Senior Consultant and Senior Fellow, and ask them to please come up and give us a short presentation of the overview of the work, of the scope of work that they've been engaged to do with us. So George, thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Chair Werner, and thanks to the members of the Board of Supervisors for allowing us this opportunity to both to speak with you this morning and to work with you. I would like to turn for a moment to let you see the other members of the team. Rich Novak, who is the guy with the sling, I'm sorry. Rich was the Vice President for AGB for many years and is now a senior fellow with us. And Lynn Somerville, who is the Assistant Director for AGB Consulting. So thank you both for being here, and thanks all of you for giving us the opportunity. Again, I'm George Pernsteiner. I have been many things in the past. Don't hold any of them against me. One of them, in fact, was as the Chancellor of the University System in Oregon. And one of our schools actually played for the football national championship when I was there. But we did not have Blake Ferguson, and so alas, we were not as successful as you. So I give you credit both for bringing him and for being successful in that endeavor. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the schedule and what we are intending to do as we take a look at the leadership structure of the university. It is the leadership structure of the entire university, but it also focuses on the Baton Rouge campus. But I mention that because there are other elements of the university that we will take a look at as we go forward, and in fact have already been raised as important parts to be considered in the conversations that we have had. We will be doing interviews here in Baton Rouge, both yesterday and today. We will be doing interviews later on in Shreveport. We will do others by telephone. And in those interviews, we will talk with you. We will talk with the President Galligan, with the chancellors or their representatives, with members of the faculty, with members of the student body, with administrators at both the campus level and at both the LSU level, with members of the affiliates, and also with the commissioner's office. And so we will try to get as broad a cross-section of folks who are interested in this as possible in order to try to understand the different perspectives, but mostly to understand what you are trying to achieve as the supervisors on behalf of the students and on behalf of the state. Because really, in the end, that really is the focus that you have, and therefore must be the focus that we bring to this engagement as we take a look at structure. We will be meeting with you again, some subset of us, on April 23rd to talk about what it is, an outline of what it is we have found, and the various alternatives and what the pros and cons of those alternatives might be. I will not be among those folks who will be here because I have a new grandson in Marseille, France, and I will be there. But other members of the team, including Rich, will be here, and they will be able to more than ably provide the information that you need. In those interviews, as some of you have already learned, since we've had them with some of you, we're asking you what is working now and working well, what might be improved, and what progress you've made since 2012. We also will be surveying the leaders of other universities and university systems around the country who have similar characteristics to those of Louisiana State. And we will be asking them those that have the president and the chancellor in a single person, and those which have divided those roles in two between the head of a system and the head of the flagship campus. What is working for them? What are the challenges that they have? We have already heard that the integration which you began in 2012 and the branding achievements which you have had substantial progress, and that many people believe that progress should be continued no matter what structure you ultimately choose to have. We've also heard that this is a time of great success for Louisiana State University. I mentioned the football team. Perhaps, and certainly more importantly, you are one of the few flagship universities in this country who's growing, who's increasingly diverse in its student body, and whose success, student success, has been improving in terms of retention and graduation. You are doing something right. That is something that we need to keep in mind as we do our work, so that we don't recommend anything or suggest anything that would screw up what you're doing well, because you are doing things well. When I was the head of the State Higher Education Executive Officers Association, which is another role, I told you a lot of roles, that is a group that in each of the 50 states, there is someone or sometimes two people who oversee higher education. In this state, it's the commissioner. Those people were my members. I learned from them that every state, no matter what its structure, is different. Every state is unique in how it looks at higher education and in what is important to it with regard to how higher education can advance the citizens and advance the economic development and advance the well-being of the overall state. Each state has its own structure. It may look like that of another state, but actually it may not act the same way as that other state. The important thing here is to find what you can choose to be the right way to approach structure here in Louisiana that will allow you to achieve for the students and for the state the important improvements which you are seeking. We thank you very much for the opportunity to have this engagement. There will be a final report sometime in May that will build upon not only what the interviews have found with the people here in Louisiana and the other systems, and not only what the interplay on April 23rd leaves, but also all of the things which we have heard from various sources that will allow us to give you the pros and the cons of a variety of options. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Unless there is an objection, we will now recess to committee meetings. Mr. Anderson, would you please convene your committee?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll ask Ms. Griffin to call the roll, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Brazel?
Here.
Mr. Armenter?
Here.
Mr. Shadowland? Ms. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Mallett? Here. Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Perry? Mr. Yarbrough?
Here.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll call on Dr. Haney to cover the agenda items.
Yes, thank you. First, I am excited to request that the board approve conferral dates for the 2020 spring commencement exercises.
Okay, we have those, you have those dates, so what's your pleasure on the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt those.
Okay, it's moved by Mr. Yarbrough. Second by Mr. Mallett. Any objections? Hearing no objections, so moved. Dr. Haney?
Yes, second is a request from LSU Alexandria to establish the College of Business and to rename the College of Professional Studies. Currently, the LSUA has two colleges, Colleges of Arts and Sciences and the College of Professional Studies. The Department of Business has grown exponentially with almost 700 students in the department now, with both the BS in Accounting and Business Administration. They recently earned ACBSP accreditation, and so it's a fitting time to establish a third college of business. But they are also requesting to rename the College of Professional Studies to the College of Health and Human Services. And there will be no additional costs for staffing or facilities.
Thank you, Dr. Haney. Any questions from the board? Dr. Correll, do you have any comments?
It's pretty exciting what's happening in the Department of Business. We hope to be the College of Business. Much of this growth is both on campus and online with our partnership with LSU Online. So this will really set us to be much more attractive to a lot more students, and we'd really appreciate the support. I think it'll be good for LSUA.
Very good. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Okay, Mr. Moore, do I have a second?
A second.
Second from the student that enjoys that campus. Any objections? Hearing none, so moved. Dr. Haney, item 3.
Yes, so next is to create a post-baccalaureate certificate in accounting at LSU Alexandria. And this program will equip students who already hold a business-related degree but would like the additional skill sets in accounting that could facilitate sitting for the CPA examination. It's 30 credit hours total. It will be available online, and there will also be the capacity for students to take some of the coursework in a traditional setting. And certainly accountants are among the best paid employees in that region. And there are 60 students currently in the BS in accounting. The certificate will enhance that field. And there, again, are no additional costs that should be accrued in making this available.
Any questions from the board? Dr. Correll, do you have any comments?
The only comment I'll make, with surveys done in Central Louisiana, there is a shortage of accountants. So we're trying to address workforce demands in the area, and this will really help us do that. So this is one of the reasons we brought this forward. It's coming a lot from the business community.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve that?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move.
Okay, Mr. Yarborough makes the motion. We need a second.
I second.
Okay, Mr. Brazil seconds it. Any objections? Hearing none, so moved. Item 3, Dr. Haney.
Yes, so next is a request from LSU Shreveport to establish a Bachelor of Science in Mass Communication. This will allow them to reconfigure the Bachelor of Arts into the BS, and it will be streamlined into 2 concentrations: journalism and public relations, and digital and broadcast production. Once this is approved, the BA will be terminated. And of course, students who are currently in the BA, they'll facilitate their graduation. But this provides a more professional setting, and this comes from the direct input of the LSUS Media Advisory Council, and certainly can help students who are engaging in internships to be better prepared for a 21st century, really focused digital media workplace. This will be face-to-face program. And also, this proposal includes incorporated suggestions from the Board of Regents staff, and certainly they are supportive as well.
Okay.
And actually, they're supporting a full proposal rather than our having to go through a traditional letter of intent and then a full proposal. So the Regents are clearly supportive of this too.
Very good. Any comments from the board? Any questions? Anyone have any other comments they'd like to make? All right, a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, Ms. Jones made it. I need a second.
Second.
Okay, we'll mix this up a little bit. Glenn, you seconded it. Any opposition to this? Okay, so moved. Hearing none, so moved. Okay, item 5.
Yes, so next is a request again from LSU Shreveport to establish undergraduate certificates in business. The Board of Regents recently has, again, seeing the landscape across higher education where there are stackable credentials. This will allow 3 certificates, one in business law, one in small business management, and one in business fundamentals. These are all traditional face-to-face programs, will not require any new courses. These 3 certificates will be grandfathered into the AACSB accreditation, which is up for review in '22. And the projections from these certificates are 10 to 40 students, and up to a growth of 5 per year is expected for each program.
Okay, any questions of Dr. Haney? Any other comments? Okay, we need a motion to approve that request.
So moved.
Ms. Jones made the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Yarber seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, so moved. Item 6.
And just to be clear that that motion included those, all 3 of those undergraduate certificates. The next is a rather lengthy consent agenda today, but a very exciting one that represents a great deal of progress for our partners who are investing in our students and in our faculty. And so before you is a request for approval of 3 endowed chairs, 8 endowed professorships, 15 endowed scholarships, the augmentation of 1 scholarship, 3 waivers of tuition for city year, and the naming of 1 room.
Any questions on the consent agenda items? We need a motion to approve those. Mr. Mallett made the motion. Need a second?
I second.
Okay, Richard seconded it. Any objections? So move. Okay, I think that covers the consent agenda items. I need a motion to adjourn the academic committee.
So moved.
Got a motion by Glenn, seconded by Bobby.
Yes.
All in, well, I like to do all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That keeps the board awake. All right. Madam Chairman, that concludes my committee work.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Jamp, would you please convene the Legal Affairs Committee?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Griffith, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Damp?
Here.
Mr. Armenter?
Here.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Brazel?
Here.
Ms. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Mallett? Here. Mrs. Starnes?
No, she did it.
Mr. Perry? Mr. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Woods?
Here.
Mr. Damp, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. DeQueer, you have 1 item to present, please, sir.
Board members, this is a pretty straightforward item. It came to my attention when the chair told me that sheriff's officers are following her all over the state to serve lawsuits on behalf of the university. There's actually a state statute that allows the university to designate a registered agent. So what this item is asking the board, if it so desires, to designate the secretary of the board, which is the president, as the registered agent, and the board office as the domicile. So when we receive legal pleadings or lawsuits, instead of having to find the board chair, they can simply be served upon the president at the board office. This would also help us track lawsuits because they would all come here, and we'd be able to put them in the pipeline to be handled quickly.
I'll make that motion.
Yes.
Second.
Without objection, motion passes. I'm sorry, the motion was made by Mr. Anderson and seconded by Ms. Jones. Without objection, it passes, and that concludes our report.
Thank you very much, and the chair is greatly appreciative of all the sheriff's departments. Rapides Parish, apparently. They put a few miles on their cars.
I suppose I should be grateful too.
So just a question, is it, who's gonna be the registered agent? Lucky, I have personal experience with getting those. I think it's a good idea. It's it's not, is it gonna go, who's it gonna go to? The president as secretary of the board?
The resolution's gonna say the president, and authorizing the president will allow the system staff to simply update it as needed. The domicile is gonna be the UAB building. So the location will essentially never change.
The challenge we were running into is that my office is in Lake Charles and Calcasieu Parish. However, work brings me to Baton Rouge, and I was not often in regular office hours in our office in Lake Charles, and it was just very difficult. So many could not be left for me there.
And they stopped you on the interstate to give you these?
I actually had to make an appointment with one in particular, and he came to Baton Rouge and met me here to serve me.
A lawyer, but does it require personal
Some
on the,
Well, if you don't have a registered agent,
right?
the way you serve the board is through the chair.
But does it require personal service?
Yes, yes.
So
They,
I'm just saying, everything that was served on me last year was served on the people at my office, so we may have a challenge.
Good to know. Good to
Sorry
know.
about being
Good to know.
but I do.
I didn't work at Sweet Lake Land and Oil Company for some reason. You tried. Thank you. Mr. Blossman, would you please convene the Finance Committee?
Sure. Ms. Griffiths, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Shatterland? Mr. Blossman?
Here.
Mr. Brazel?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Damp?
Here.
Ms. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Mallett?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Perry? Mr. Yarborough?
Here.
Mr. Blossman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I ask Don Lawhorn to please present an update on the supplier diversity, please.
Good morning, Chair Warner and the rest of the board and everyone in the audience. Today, I'm going to do a quick review of the supply diversity program in my last 12 months of being at LSU. Actually, 12 months and 2 weeks. We're going to do an overview of the supply diversity program. We did the PM 81 project memorandum, the draft of the FASOP, which is a standard operating procedure, operational updates, and diverse spend metrics. Basically, the permanent memorandum PM 81 summarizes to say that all of LSU is committed to diversity and diversity spend, and that every campus is affected by diverse spend. The general policy says that, and I'm not going to read it word by word, everyone at the LSU system is responsible for supply diversity goals. These are the new diverse classifications: DB, disadvantaged business enterprises; ACDB, which is a DB with airport concessions; MBEs, which is minority business enterprises; WBEs, which is women-owned business; veteran and service and disabled veteran enterprises; women-owned small businesses; LGBTE; 8A, which is the SBA classification for disadvantaged businesses. The campuses that are affected is basically everyone: A&M, Alexandria, Eunice, Shreveport, Ag Center, Pennington, Health Science Center New Orleans, Health Science Center Shreveport, Healthcare Services Division, and all the affiliated organizations. The FASOP, which is the standard operating procedure, will be finalized by the end of March, which is the end of this quarter. It basically is establishing a standard procedure for everyone to operate. We disseminated it about a month and a half ago to all the campuses, so everyone has had a chance, even up to this morning, to provide feedback so that I can compile all the feedback and make something that everyone can agree with. In the operating procedure, we've established a 35% goal, not a 35% goal for participation, a 35% goal for spending. It goes across all campuses to ensure continuity. It's been reviewed, like I said, and the draft will come out in March, by the end of March.
Can I stop right there? Mr. DeQueer, can we make sure that our structure and the goals and targets here are all compliant and are filed and issued?
yes, we will.
Sorry, Mr. Long.
No problem. Basically, supply diversity updates. Over the past year, we've had some turnover in our office. So basically now it's down to a department of one. We're in the process of interviewing a new specialist, and we have about 40 candidates, half of which are very good candidates. We're also interviewing for grad assistants. So this should boost our ability to produce drastically. We're going into a new software program, which is B2G now, and it's also going to work along with Microsoft software. So we can do a lot better things with the reporting. We remove self-certifying certifications. So there's no one that can say they're certified just by saying I'm certified. You can't say I'm a minority, you can't say I'm a woman, you can't say that. You have to have a third-party certification, which means you've been vetted through some other source, and then I double-check your certification. We're developing a new procedure for Tier 2s, and after that, we'll develop another procedure for other parties. So the first step was to internally develop a procedure. So now that everyone will have a procedure standard across the board, at the end of March, we're going to hit everyone else with the same type of procedures. And then the newest thing we're going to do this year is we're going to launch an estimating training course in North Louisiana and South Louisiana, so we can get people who aren't up to speed on bidding to get them up to speed. Now, some of the metrics. All I did was compare the first quarter of last year to the first quarter of this year. As you can see, with MB spend, it was $3 million last year. This year was $3.9 million. WB 3.9, it went up to 4.4. DB went down 200,000 from 375 to 115. We had no numbers on major construction previously. Now with major construction projects such as Charity Hospital, they've actually pushed their demolition bid back to the end of March, and they're currently at about 23 to 25% spend. The greenhouse project, the foundation is completed. They have executed contracts with several diverse contractors, and they're at 9.69%. The total of those two is approximately somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5 million. So that would mean that we've doubled the spend from last year to this year with diverse firms. Also, another win that we have is through the help of the foundation and Patrick Morton, we tried something else new. The foundation established a bid process on a new contract for the Lakes project. They incorporated diverse spending in the bid. They put a set number of points to diverse spending, and you had to have diverse spending in your original bid. It came down to two parties. One party had more diverse spend participation than the other, and they actually got more points. Those points caused them to win, and it's now a DB company that has the partnership on that contract. So are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. I think that the progress we're making, though it's slow, it's very important progress. And I want to, again, thank the past chair for initiating this a while back, and it's taken us a long time to get going. But, Don, thank you for all the work, because I think we are making steady progress, even though it's probably not as quick as some of us would like. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, I didn't hear anybody need any questions or have any questions, so I will entertain a motion to conclude. Moved by Mr. Mallett. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Moore. All in favor? Keep everybody awake? All right, how about any opposed? Carried.
They didn't work.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
He's still sleeping?
Thank you, Mr. Blossom.
I need a gavel.
Mr. Woods, would you please convene the Property and Facilities Committee?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Griffith, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Woods?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Shadowland? Mr. Brazel?
Here.
Ms. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Mallett?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Starnes?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Yarbrough?
Here.
Mr. Woods, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Lazelle to present the items for consideration of this committee today.
Thank you, Mr. Woods, members of the board. The first item will be an update on a consulting engagement that began in December of 2018 regarding our utility plant on the Baton Rouge campus. As you can imagine, the utility plant and our utility distribution system is suffering from the same deferred maintenance backlog pressures as the rest of campus, which means we have a significant backlog of maintenance, which is creating many issues with regard to our utility distribution and generation. As a result, we've been working with the consulting firm KPMG to identify a path forward, which is going to involve a public-private partnership. I'm going to ask the KPMG team to come up and provide an overview of the results of their analysis and and they're also going to provide an outline of the competitive process that we intend to use to to certainly end up with the best deal possible for LSU. And with that, I'd like to ask KPMG to come up.
Great.
And you're here.
We're here. Thank you, Dan. Good morning, members of the board. My name is Dan Feidelberg, and I'm a principal with KPMG's Higher Education Infrastructure Advisory Practice. Late last year, I provided the board with a summary of our initial assessment regarding the condition of the university's physical facilities, its utility systems, and its operations. And my goal today, as Dan suggested, is to provide an informational update on what we've learned since that point in time and to outline a potential strategy to develop a partnership that's in the best interests of the university. The next few slides just simply serve as a reminder that this update is part of the university operations and facilities assessment that the board asked us to conduct late last year. And we've conducted the first two phases of work, and now based on that work, we're beginning to implement high priority recommendations. Among the findings that we found for the university was to explore a potential partnership to modernize heating and cooling systems and the power systems which support LSU's classrooms, its laboratories, and student life facilities. And there are three core elements of the university's utility system, which generate, the first is the central utility plant. That generates power and utilities used throughout the campus. The second is the distribution system, which includes 9 miles of underground pipes that deliver steam and chilled water to every building on campus. And the third is the heating and ventilation systems that keep indoor environments comfortable all year long. And all three of those elements need to work holistically within a system, both for students and faculty to do their work, but also to drive efficiency throughout the system. The central utility plant shown here on the left provides about 60% of the electricity demand and 100% of the steam and cooling to the campus. And altogether, annual expenditures of the university total about $32 million per year, with a little over half of that for the purchase of commodities for the system. As we discussed last year, we've also documented an increasing amount of deferred maintenance in the system. Across the portfolio, we're seeing both increased demand on the system combined with significant capital rehabilitation needs. And the deferral of maintenance causes strain on the system. It's increasing leakage. That drives costs up and results in suboptimal conditions for a research university that requires reliability 24 hours a day. This chart illustrates that the backlog for the central utility plant and the distribution system is about $200 million. Based on the facilities condition assessment, there's significant additional investment required in the building mechanical systems, but further due diligence is going to be required in order to understand the specific components of that project to bring the building mechanicals up to date. And our assessment has led to an understanding that establishing a program now to modernize the systems that feed those buildings really is the first step in implementing the campus master plan adopted a few years ago. This is not only due to the increasing cost to operate the system, but also to mitigate the latent risk to the institution's mission and reputation that unplanned failures could cause. Over the next 10 to 20 years, LSU's master plan calls for developing more than 1 million additional square feet of academic space, as well as maintaining over 13 million of space currently in service. And by securing the long-term efficiency and reliability of the basic systems now, the campus will be better prepared to accept those new facilities and to implement the master plan. So the modernization options we've outlined are shown here on the right. First, developing a new and efficient data-driven central plant that can reduce energy costs. Applying the latest innovations where possible to be efficient with how current systems are operating prior to the construction of that new plant. Installing modern distribution networks that can provide reliable long-term foundation for the new and existing buildings. And lastly, modernizing the building systems that manage demand and the flow of utilities. As the university considers moving forward with the modernization project, we work with the university leadership to establish some core principles and goals that would drive the project. And these are intended to be the goalposts to which the process will point. The first is to increase levels of service and create budgetary certainty that will empower leadership to make good financial decisions for other campus investments into the future. To address deferred maintenance, as we've discussed, we believe that the savings generated through more efficient savings will generate capital that can then be reinvested into the system in order to cure the deferred maintenance associated with the infrastructure. A partner who can respond to energy demand in the future is the third goal, and that many new buildings, especially in the sciences, require specialized requirements, and being prepared, having the campus be prepared to accept those facilities will be essential. Fourth, LSU should seek a partner who can provide cost-effective, technologically advanced solutions. And finally, a partner who can assure resiliency to campus stakeholders. With these goals in mind, we conducted a high-level market-sounding effort with an array of local and national utility infrastructure market participants. Over the past several years, the district energy services sector has grown significantly. And across the country, many market participants have expressed interest in competing for the chance to partner with high-profile, internationally significant universities like LSU. This is happening all over the country. LSU invited 11 top firms to discuss the potential modernization project, and all 11 enthusiastically participated in that process. And since then, 5 additional firms have also asked for a chance to meet. In our discussions, we sought feedback on what was possible for a campus like LSU, what would be most attractive from a financial point of view, and the pros and cons of optimal transaction structures. And that process has built a strong foundation for a successful and competitive go-to-market process should the university officially express interest in seeking a partner. As a two-way dialogue, market participants offered advice to the university in 4 different categories. First and foremost, the market participants are willing to vigorously compete for the university's partnership in a process that's fair, clear, and transparent each step of the way. The second is that now is a great time to start, but in doing so, that the university should take the time necessary to conduct due diligence to ensure that it structures a well-understood transaction with buy-in across the institution. And that's because moving forward with an underdeveloped commercial structure could discourage broad participation and ultimately cause bidders to add contingencies into their models. Thus far, the discussions about the commercial structure have focused on a customized approach to an energy services agreement, which means the university could leverage aspects of commercial structures used within the state by Ohio State, Iowa, Syracuse, and others to optimize that transaction for the particular challenges and opportunities that LSU faces. The third piece of positive information is that market participants are willing to address all 3 elements of the system: the central plant, the distribution system, and the building mechanicals. And finally, all the participants expressed a willingness to provide an upfront payment that some but not all universities have structured into their transactions. Some universities have structured upfront payments for a variety of reasons, but it's essential to understand that the upfront payment is also not free money. It's akin to a loan that needs to be paid back through the course of the transaction through the price of energy. And so if LSU considers adding that component into the project, it would be advisable to carefully analyze how the university will utilize the proceeds, its return on the investment relative to the cost, the impact of the arrangement on the university budget, its credit, and the tolerance of risk that the university is willing to take. So in this next slide, based on the level of market interest and the feedback we received, we've structured a competitive go-to-market process that's shown here, designed to achieve the goals of the modernization with a long-term partner who can deliver an optimal technical solution at best value to the university. The procurement strategy we're recommending is to issue a request for qualifications. That RFQ would invite the market to compete for a spot on a short list of up to 3 firms who would be asked to make a formal proposal. The university would then launch an RFP, which would incorporate a substantive due diligence process, and that would maximize clarity, competitive tension, and value to the university. And then at the end of the RFP, when firms submit their proposals, the terms and conditions of the arrangement would be known going into that final proposal process. The university would then select its preferred provider and quickly move to commercial and financial close by the middle of next year. So as a final note, a key driver in structuring the procurement this way is to enable the university to capture the financial benefits of a competitive process. If the university is able to nurture an open, transparent, and competitive process amongst multiple bidders, you'll see that small changes in the bidders' financial models could result in significant benefits to the university over the term of a 40 to 50-year agreement. So as the table on this slide shows, there are several factors that drive value. It includes the cost of money, maintenance services, the sizing of the capital investment, and the resultant amount of energy that the university will need to purchase over time. And ultimately, it's that technical solution that's deployed that would generate savings in commodity consumption in exchange for a certain capital investment, which is the value driver. Since the goal of the competitive process will be to develop that solution as much as possible through a long-term contract and generate a partnership that the university and the partner are both comfortable with. So over the next few months, we'll plan to work alongside campus leadership to develop that first stage RFQ for your review and ensure that that properly reflects LSU's ambitions and strategic objectives. So thank you for the opportunity to provide you with the update, and happy to take any questions you might have.
Questions, anyone? Then 11 firms that were identified as showing interest. How did you go about developing that list? And
I'll ask Dan to describe that.
Sure. We utilized the list of folks who've traditionally done business with the university, as well as those who have competed nationally for other district energy transactions in the higher education market. So we looked at those who had competed on transactions like Ohio State, Syracuse, Iowa State, the University of Idaho process that's just undergoing, Dartmouth, and others, some of which we advise on and we have relationships in the market with. And since that time, the additional firms that are coming out are actually a reflection of large energy market participants who are seeking entry into the higher education market as well. And because of the growth of this market for higher education institutions, there is that significant additional interest that we see.
And those 4 firms have had access to the same information as the initial 11 in terms of...
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. And just to clarify, that was really, we're not limiting the, certainly the bid to those firms that have participated. It was really to inform our development of the competitive process. So whoever, any qualified firm, whether or not they were involved in those initial discussions can.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Storms.
How you said you did? You looked at firms that had traditionally done business with the university. How do you define traditionally done business with the university?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the.
How did y'all define traditionally done business with the university?
We worked with the campus and looked at those who've entered into energy-related contracts with the university.
Did you vet this through our diversity supplier program?
Not at this time, but we are, as you enter into the RFQ, I'd note that very typically there are qualitative considerations and an invitation for those entities to form teams. And so we would expect to include the diversity supplier requirements and goals of the university into the process to ensure those invitations. With a transaction of this ilk, all of the market participants who are participating in the higher energy market typically are very familiar with the supplier diversity requirements in the states in which they operate, and no doubt we would design the process to ensure that that was built in here.
That sounds like a good idea, but do you think it could be a better policy to try to incorporate the diversity supplier program requirements at an earlier stage than after they've already basically selected who's going to lead projects, and then hope they form teams to meet the requirements?
Yeah, so at this stage there has been no request to form teams. That request is would be conducted with the issuance of the RFQ. The process we started with market participants was a dialogue to understand those firms who have executed these types of transactions in the marketplace and the types of commercial structures that the university might want to consider. We're absolutely happy to work with the university to ensure that that facilitation is done, and to the extent that you would request that we dialogue with additional firms before the launch of an RFQ, we're happy to do that as well.
Mr. Starnes, let me just to clarify. Yes, I mean, like the charity project, like our other projects, we will include as part of from the start that expectation.
Dan, can I ask you, how is that formalized? In the past, we've had a situation where we've said, oh yeah, we definitely want to include this in the beginning, from one way or the other, that doesn't happen, and then we're down the line. Is there something structurally in place to make sure that
As Mr. Lawhorn outlined, the PM and the FASOP, and those we did not have those before, and that will certainly the reference to that will clarify that as our expectation.
And I'm not trying to bring up old stuff. I mean, I'm just using it as an example. I just want to make sure that what we have in place now between the PM and the standard operating procedure, that operates as a structural
insurance.
Mechanism, if you will, to make sure that
exactly
something like this is coming through the university, that it's going to be subject to the program.
Exactly. Before it was more just an understanding. Now it is, it's a formal spelled out requirement. Okay.
Question about
Mr. Brown.
the business arrangement. The chairman and I toured the plant facility yesterday, and we see firsthand the need for taking care of our deferred maintenance and also planning for future expansion firsthand. So it was very informative. Appreciate staff. What's the kind of in a summary? Who would own the new system under what you would anticipate, and what are the front-end costs of the university or savings on the capital improvements and repairs and so forth? And then what are the long-term benefits to the university? Just I know you have the tables and so forth, but just kind of summarize why we want to do this.
Sure.
Or should consider it.
Yeah, very, very good question. The ownership of the new facilities would remain with the university. They'd be subject to a lease or a concession agreement to the third party to build and then operate and manage the facilities over the term of the contract. The process and the agreement itself will provide for the life cycle costs of that facility. And so going into the process, the university would gain greater clarity as to the long-term costs of providing energy into the campus system and the distribution network. That's the reason to do it, is that you're locking in the life cycle costs of the infrastructure over the term of the long-term agreement and building budget certainty into that process. And by doing it through a competitive process, you're enabling firms to come together, facilitate design elements, optimize the solution, and ultimately it's the solution that's selected drives down value. So different from a singular process where you might go forward with a singular design and choose a technology solution, you're looking to the market to bring the best ideas to the university.
So our partner would come up with a plan to improve and expand our system, and then they would also manage our system going forward.
Correct.
And then the capital expense to upgrade and do the repairs, now that would be, how would that be funded?
So the private partner would fund the construction and that capital investment, and it would be repaid to that partner over time through the cost of energy.
How much would you anticipate that would add to do you have any idea what that would add to our cost of energy?
So we will be working in the project with the current levels of energy that the university has provided. The goal is to conduct as much capital improvement as possible within the construct of the current budget constraints. The university is expending dollars both on the deferred maintenance and maintenance of the system today. So that's our base case. We would ultimately be bringing back those costs and doing that in a transparent way, so that the university could consider
Well,
any
from your
budget
experience from other universities, peer universities or similar, what's been the experience of their, the results of this capital program with them?
It's all relative to the way each university operates. Some of the transactions, and particularly those that have generated large upfront payments, were with universities that were making significant investments in their capital infrastructure of their energy systems in the past. And so when they were have done their comparisons to existing costs, they're taking into consideration significant investments historically that have been made. The challenge here, frankly, is that there hasn't been significant investment in the plant historically, which has driven this larger deferred maintenance need, and that's where we see the potential for potential impacts that you'll need to consider as we go through the process.
Are you involved with the Health Science Center in New Orleans?
We are not. Our company is not.
Be interested to see the results of that venture.
Yeah, we'd be happy to work with representatives of the institution to look at comparative.
And then as far as procuring power or gas, electricity going forward, would our partner be involved with that too, making those contracts?
That will be to be determined through the process. Those decisions will need to be made by the university about who would be responsible for the procurement. And one of the significant topics we've talked about is commodity price risk, which we do think the university will still need to bear the risk of fluctuations in commodity costs long term.
Well, when you come back to us with a proposal, will you fully disclose the cost up front, the benefits for this?
Absolutely, and we'll be developing those through the process.
What's the time length you would anticipate to be under contract with this partner?
So the current schedule anticipates mid-2021.
What's the length
15
of
months.
the contract?
And the length of the length of the contract with the base case is 40 to 50 years.
Okay. Would we be using our full faith and credit, the university, to support these energy costs going forward?
Yeah, that's a structural decision that has not been made, and I think university leadership will need to consider the credit impacts of those types of decisions as we move forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Dan,
Mr. Mallett.
Could you refresh my memory? This engagement started when, and what was the scope of this engagement? When will this part of the engagement be completed? And how much was that engagement we agreed with these people?
The engagement was just under, in total, about $2 million. It began in December of 2018. This part of the engagement that we're talking about now will be done, as Dan indicated, by the first part of 2021, calendar 2021, which is when we'll be bringing back for the board's consideration the successful bidder.
Okay, so the scope of their engagement is to solicit bids?
Mm-hmm. To work with us on developing the bid document and help us through the analysis of that bid.
And the cost of this engagement was $2 million?
Yes, roughly.
Another question, Dan. Who will manage this process for us, for the university, when we get under contract and manage the construction and
well, it'll be our facilities staff will be working with the partner on that. It'll be a team effort on, be Tony's folks.
So I got a quick question. The engagement was for $2 million, and it's supposed to run through next year?
Well, it's going to run through the, selection process.
So I guess it's been a year and 2 months, so we're about 9 months, I'm guessing we spent half the money.
Roughly.
No, it
I'm just
started in
guessing.
Started in 2018.
And
2018.
December of 2018.
Yeah, December.
Okay, so that's,
Year and a half.
15 months ago?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's it.
Mr. Yarborough.
Would there be an opportunity for LSU, either through opportunity or need, to sell to a third party some of the energy?
It's a good question. The sale back of energy may be subject to regulatory requirements of the state. Our base case is that is likely not a solution. Currently, LSU, 60% of the energy needs are being, the current central plant provides 60% of the current energy needs of the campus. And so there's capacity to grow the amount of energy being used just for LSU's need and to reduce the amount being bought off the grid. So the base case is not that they would be overproducing to resell into the marketplace.
Are there some places where that is done?
There are markets where that is allowed, and some institutions are looking, where it is allowed at those opportunities, and some there are net metering opportunities that don't allow for a wholesale contract, but incidental sales, and so it depends state by state in the marketplace.
Thank you.
Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but we currently are not allowed to do that under PSC regulations, correct?
Under PSC, we're not allowed to sell electricity. We can sell other products, like chilled water.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Thank you very much. I think, Mr. Lombardo, you have the next item on the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Woods. Item 2, authorization of the president to execute documents related to the acquisition of on-campus housing at LSU Shreveport. This is actually a matter of legal housekeeping. You've already seen this item. The LSU Board of Supervisors at its September 13th, 2019 meeting approved a resolution authorizing President F. King Alexander to take action on the acquisition of on-campus housing, and we are updating that to Interim President Thomas Galligan.
Are there any questions on the item? If none, is there a motion to recommend the proposal as presented?
I'd like to make the motion, please.
Moved by Mr. Brown, second by Mr. Yarborough. Any objections? Hearing none, so moved. Next item, please.
Item 3, we'll ask Dr. Kerwin to address.
Yes, Dr. Kerwin, thank you.
This is the CEA related to the obesity initiative at Pennington. And I just want to take a moment to remind you that Wednesday was World Obesity Day. And in case you missed it, we published an op-ed in the Advocate, and together with my international colleagues and colleagues at Pennington, we published a joint international consensus statement for the ending of stigma of obesity in the prestigious journal Nature Medicine, which is a significant step forward in addressing this problem of obesity. But Wednesday wasn't a day to celebrate. It was a day to shine a light on what is one of the greatest health challenges that's facing our state, our nation, and indeed globally. And just to put this into perspective, obesity was recognized as a disease in 2013 by the American Medical Association. 650 million people worldwide have obesity. Louisiana has the 4th largest population with obesity in the nation, and these numbers have tripled since 1990. Currently, we have 37% of the population of the state who have obesity. And a recent publication in the New England Journal of Medicine, which is really going to become a landmark paper, has identified that by 2030, 60% of the adults in Louisiana will have obesity. We are on an upward trend. Now, bariatric surgery in the program before you in terms of the CEA won't prevent or completely reverse the trends that we're looking at here, but it is an important and it's a very significant step to address the problem. The program is the result of a collaboration between Pennington Biomedical, the Louisiana Department of Economic Development, and the Division of Administration, Our Lady of the Lake Hospital, the LSU Health Sciences Center in New Orleans, and the Pennington Biomedical Foundation. And through this initiative and program, we're going to begin pre- and post-operative visits for bariatric surgery patients, and we're beginning to create a state-of-the-art clinic in newly renovated space on the Pennington campus. We've hired one of the world's leading metabolic surgeons, Dr. Philip Schauer, as its first director, and we expect to be performing surgeries in Q2 this year. So we respectfully request your approval of this CEA as the first step to advance this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Storms.
I'd like to move to make a motion to approve this request.
It's moved by Mr. Storms. Second by Mr. Mallett.
Mr. Chairman,
Questions? Mr. Yarborough.
I'd like to recuse myself from voting on this item.
Ms. Griffith, please note the recusal of Mr. Yarborough
Yes, sir.
on this motion. Are there any objections? Without objection, it's approved. At this time, I'll accept the motion to conclude the committee's business. Is there any objection?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Jones, second by Mr. Brown. No objections, hearing none. Madam Chair, I think that concludes our business of the Properties and Facilities Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. At this time, we are going to recess for lunch. Is there any objection? Without hearing any, we are in recess for 1 hour. We will come back and start with the athletics committee.
It's gonna be the main